Tracy Goulding remembers when she and her husband bought their dream house in Dublin just 4 years ago.
I don't know what it was, I just fell in love with it because the show houses, the area that it was in, it was lovely, it was done up lovely, like, and there was, you know, the playground down the road for the kids, and it was just, it was going to be a great place to live. Like, we were going to have the shopping centres and libraries and bars and restaurants and everything, and obviously that didn't materialise. Like, I still absolutely love my house, still love it to bits, like, but it's, I don't know, I think I might have to give it up, unfortunately.
Giving up their dream house, a reality the Gouldings and other Irish homeowners are increasingly facing. The reason? The house they bought during Ireland's Celtic tiger boom years is now worth only half of what they paid. In 2006, they paid €460,000. Today, they say they'd be lucky to get 290. They are in negative equity.
You couldn't see it coming. I mean, even when we were buying this house, you know, it was like the banks were willing to give us more money than we asked for. There was clips on the radio from government officials saying, yeah, it's still the right time to buy, get in there and buy your house, like, you know. And when there was a bit of doubt going around about how long it could last and all that, the government were quick to say, you know, no, invest in property, it's the way forward, there's no problem with the market, there's no problem with our banks and all that, you know. And so we felt confident. We felt confident. Plus I was working, I earned a good wage, Tracy was working. Tracy's wages was paying the mortgage and the bills, basically, and then we had my wages to live off. But then, as times moved on, it just got too tight. I lost my job, and once I lost the job, then the pinch really started happening.
Yeah.
Michael and Tracy bought their house in a brand new estate called Belmain Park in northern Dublin. But when the Celtic boom went bust, both developers and banks ran out of money. A third of the houses are empty. Michael, an electrician, lost his job 2 years ago when the crisis hit. Today, his benefits are down to €54 a week. Their mortgage is €1,600. His wife, an accountant, had to take a cut in salary. They have 2 children. For Michael, like the half-finished estate where he lives, the situation is surreal.
We're happy enough with where we live, you know, where the whole negative equity thing and all that is hanging over our heads. If we ever did decide to move, possibly we couldn't sell the house because of the way the estate is left, you know, that it's not finished to the same standard. But having said that, what is finished is lovely. You know, the estate, and especially in the summertime now, you have the playground and all that, it's lovely for the kids. The kids love living here, so it's not too bad, but it's, I suppose if you ever wanted to sell, you know, it'd be very hard to sell the property with the estate the way it is, you know.
Belmain, like other housing developments throughout Ireland, are so-called ghost estates. Today, it's estimated 300,000 houses or apartments stand empty, an eerie legacy of when the government, banks and developers worked hand in hand to change the landscape of this small country of 4.5 million. A change which many say went unchecked, and one for which the Irish must now pay the price. Ken O'Connor, a bricklayer, worked at this ghost estate in Dublin from 2007 to 2008.
Those cranes have been there for the last 2 years. They haven't moved. And there's no sign of anything happening.
O'Connor says the EU-IMF bailout of €85 billion to save Ireland's banks is beyond criminal, especially for people like him who've been unemployed for over 2 years.
It's unworkable. Absolutely unworkable. All they're doing at the moment is borrowing more money to pay off money that's already borrowed. I mean, I'm not an economist, but I can add 2 and 2, which is more than our finance minister seems to be able to do. No, since this crisis started, our finance minister has not got one stat correct. He has not got one figure correct. He told us this would be the cheapest bank bailout in the history of the world. It's now the most expensive, and it has almost brought down the European experience.
Fears of bringing down the European experience, or more precisely the euro, is what has led to this bailout. A bailout with a 6% interest rate, coupled with a new national budget which calls for cutting public spending and raising taxes. On paper, many are calling it economic suicide, a plan to keep the Celtic tiger on its knees for years to come. But with both the banks and the government broke, economist Brian Lucy says there was little alternative, even if he doubts the bailout can work.
The problem we have is one of the banks plus one of the government. We have a government fiscal problem we're spending approximately 50 billion euro and taking in about 31 billion euro in tax. That's unsustainable. The other problem, of course, is the banks. We have the world's largest, historically, the world's largest banking collapse. And the losses of the banks were socialised by the government in 2008. And together, these two are unsustainable for the state. One on their own would have been fine. The two together, simply not doable.
While the government has taken over many toxic bank loans on commercial and housing estates, one developer has vowed to finish what he began. Johnny Owen built a 45-house estate in Mullingar, a 1-hour drive from Dublin. Despite only selling 4 homes since it was completed 2 years ago, Johnny has kept up the estate himself with no help from the banks. Since January, he's sold 16 more units. The reason, he's selling them at half the original asking price of €290,000.
Everybody seems now to be working at a loss, and I am very fearful that an awful lot more companies are going to go to the wall over the next 6 to 8 months, probably myself included.
Companies closing, 14% unemployment rate. For Johnny, like many Irish people, there is an injustice in that those responsible for the Celtic bust have never been held accountable for sacrificing a whole generation.
Why are the bankers who created this situation not in jail today? What is wrong? Why is the regulator not in jail? Those fellas destroyed us. They're after taking our livelihoods away, the livelihoods of all the people who work for us, and they're after burying all the future generations, probably 3 or 4 generations, into a big pile of debt. They're going to have to work very hard for a very long time for very little money.
Working hard for little money, never being able to pay their mortgages, bailing out the banks. For many among the so-called sacrifice generation, the last one out should turn off the lights.
We have a seminar to go to now in the next couple of weeks for emigrating to Australia, because there's still apparently work out there for electricians, which I am by trade, it would kill me to leave, kill Tracy, especially Tracy doesn't want to go. I go just purely so I can start earning money again to provide for my family. It's terrible. It really hits your self-esteem, it hits your self-confidence, not being able to provide, and not having any opportunity at all to provide for your family, And if it comes to it, I would move, I would emigrate. I'd have very little hesitation and post the keys back to the bank, tell them to sell the house.
It's estimated that by the end of December, 1 out of 7 Irish homeowners won't be able to pay their mortgage. It's also estimated that over 100,000 will emigrate during the next year. For many, this means Ireland's economic landscape, like the Eurozone it belongs to, faces an uncertain future.